And how does that work? You just like designate this, like this money.
Yeah.
How come Bill's online? I included you in that.
I don't know if I got one right before.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I wanted to give you all an update on 291. I thought I'd at least just start on the current project underway, just since you have my attention and whatnot. And so it's coming along well. All the water services are in. The storm sewer is about 80% complete for what needed to be done this fall. It's kind of hard to see because the road's closed, but the curb and gutter and sidewalk fronting the crest and admin for the school is all complete. They're working on the curb and gutter prep down by the fire station here this week. So there's storm sewer and curb all happening right now. So it looks like that first phase from essentially Park Avenue, potentially Dodge, up to Illinois, still scheduled to be on track for completion this fall yet. And then we will be pausing during the winter and starting back up for the remaining portion this next spring. So it's coming along pretty good. But what we're here to talk about tonight is the other end of 291. So I guess the project title that received the grant funding was just called the State Highway 291 West Entry Streetscape Improvements. And so what that consists of is a very similar street project to what is occurring at Oak. So it have widening to include bike lanes, curb and gutter, storm sewer, sidewalks, all those improvements from essentially Marvin Park out past Mesa Lane. There's a crosswalk that kind of takes you from Sands Lake over to the hospital, and that would also get reworked, but not Rush Drive intersection. That's probably a bigger topic of discussion at a later date as far as what the future of that might look like. Okay. So anyways, Chris with SEH, he is the design engineer on the call for this project, and he'll be providing a presentation. Really, I think the primary focal point that could have, a greater impact as far as the finished product is that Mesa Lane intersection. They did have to provide a traffic evaluation of that and looked at some alternatives. Certainly traditional intersection versus roundabout has different pros and cons, such as speed, truck traffic, safety, and potential to do aesthetic type entryway improvements. And so Chris could get into that a bit. And then I think really what we're looking for is just concurrence or direction from council as far as moving forward with the rest of the design. We're kind of at the very beginning stages, and if the project's gonna take one direction versus the other, now's a great time just to be efficient with engineering costs. So I'll turn it over to Chris.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, thank you, David. Yeah, so my name is Chris Oliver. I'm a professional engineer working for SEH, project manager for this project. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We are currently coming up on what CDOT defines as the 30% submittal, which is the first time they'll look at the design. So we're trying to finalize these elements of geometry. Okay, so on the screen, you'll see the project extents. We're beginning, I guess depends which way you look at it, beginning at M Street and going up to that pedestrian crossing at Sands Lake, like David mentioned. And you'll see in this conceptual drawing, even though it's obscured, the intersection with Mesa Lane is depicted as a conventional intersection. Can we go next slide? And I want to talk about that intersection in terms of wait times, in terms of safety, and in terms of cost, to kind of brief you on our current design direction. Next slide. So the first, I want to talk about wait times. Well, we define them in levels of service. It's an AASHTO definition, but basically what it is we've performed a traffic study where we went and counted the cars moving through these intersections at the peak hours and throughout the day. And we're able to take those counts and evaluate the level of service from there. And we're also able to take those counts and escalate them into the future. The standard is to go 20 years into the future. So we have our counts from this year, 2024, and then we've projected counts out to the year 2044 based off standard growth, etc. We also do some adjustments to those traffic counts for what time of year it is and such. And what we found is right now, the northbound left turn from Mesa Lane onto 291 is level C, which is described as stable flow, so you can expect 15 to 25 seconds of wait at that intersection trying to make that turn. And the more Salida grows, the longer that wait time is going to get. That's only going to get longer and longer under the current configuration.
Hey, Chris, can you hear me? I just had a quick question. You're talking about 15 to 25 seconds delay today. Based on your projections, what might that look like if we were to do nothing, say 10 years from now?
Well, it falls in that same range. So let's say today it's closer to 15 seconds. 10 years down the road, it'll be closer to 20 seconds. And these are all kind of crude predictions and generalizations.
Okay. Thanks.
So the final 2044 is still level of service C. It does not deteriorate beyond that. However, each turning movement is assigned this level of service. And I think right now the left turn, as we're looking at the intersection right now, is the only condition that's level of service C. But in the future condition 2044, all movements from Mesa Lane deteriorate to level of service C. Does that answer your question, sir?
No, it does. Thank you. Thank you.
So our current design direction is that this intersection we think could benefit from the installation of a roundabout. And our modeling indicates that the installation of a roundabout would bring this to level of service A, which is described as free flow, categorized as 0 to 10 seconds of delay for each vehicle entering the intersection. The only other option is to improve level of service, is a signalization of this intersection. However, being that CDOT has control over this road, at least design, they enforce signalization warrants as defined by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is a publication of the Federal Highway Administration. And so there are eight different criteria for if a signal can be warranted. And our study finds that the warrants are not met now nor in the future, where the problem is that the signalization warrants they lean towards a sustained traffic, and the traffic we're seeing at Mesa Lane is it's focused at the AM and PM peak hours, rush hour. But then during the rest of the day, there's not that much traffic. So that's why the logic of don't want a traffic signal, because then maybe it would be needed for a couple hours a day, but then you're stopping traffic all those other hours, and that's not desirable. So we think that the roundabout is the best direction for us to go here. Next slide. What to speak to the benefits of this roundabout in terms of safety? The primary driver of what makes a roundabout safer, more better, is that the geometry of it compels cars to slow down. Generally, they're designed to be comfortable to navigate around 15 miles an hour. So this helps make the pedestrian crosser safer. One, because the cars are going slower. Two, because as part of the roundabout, we're building these pedestrian refuges and these pink medians you're seeing, the dividers. And when it comes to vehicle conflicts, this is also an improved condition, again, because the cars are going slower. That's making the collisions less severe, but it's also a different kind of collision, because in your conventional intersection, you have the worst case scenario is that you have a T-bone, right? If somebody runs a red light, they're going full speed, heaven forbid, accelerating to get through the intersection, and they can hit a car dead on, imparting all that energy on them. And a roundabout avoids that because, one, the cars are going slower, but also that it's more of a merging movement, so the cars are more likely to kind of glance off each other, right? Kind of diverting that energy to make it less likely to have severe injuries. A major concern with roundabouts is always how larger vehicles are going to be able to navigate it. We think that the roundabout will likely discourage through heavy truck traffic, but we have brought this to the attention of the fire chief, and we've done some modeling of the fire engines, and there's specifications that the fire chief has given us for the geometry of the roundabout and the curbs to be able to satisfy their requirements to be able to move their apparatus through the roundabout, and we can meet all that. So as to say, we're saying we think we believe that we'll have the buy-in from the fire chief based off of what he's told us and what we can do. Next slide. But then we come to cost. So at this point in our design, we can accommodate the going from a conventional intersection design to a roundabout design without it being a significant change to the scope. We won't need more money to design it, but construction of a roundabout is more expensive than if it were a conventional intersection. And you kind of go, there's a lot more curve, but it's also the thing of you're doing diameter of the circle conventional, and then if it's a roundabout, you have 3.14 times that length of road. So it drives the cost up. But we want to compare that to an eventual cost of signalization, because that's ultimately the only other final condition we can arrive at. When that signal is going to be warranted is unknown, but the way Salida is growing, it's kind of inevitable at some point. And right now, signalization is very expensive. We estimate that it would be between 500,000 and 750,000 to install signalization as shown in this picture, which is from Durango, by the way. But and compare that to, we think that the additional cost for a roundabout is around 350,000. We'd also like to bring up that we think that ultimately there's reduced maintenance costs and maintenance needs for the roundabout, where there's no electronics associated with it, and so on and so forth. So we think that it would be a wise investment. Next slide. And so I should speak shortly about what we can do with a conventional intersection to improve the Mesa Lane intersection. The plans, well, within the scope of the work that we are doing now, there would be curb and gutter added on the highway and at Mesa Lane at that intersection. And the curb and gutter acts as a traffic calming device. It makes drivers feel constrained. It makes them want to go slower. And so we're going slower. That's improving safety. We can do some minor improvements to the intersection geometry. If we can make it so the vehicles coming up to the intersection are hitting it more perpendicular, which will give them a little better field of view. And it seems like there was a third. Oh, and we can also look at, we can install some medians within the intersection that will, like, some of that curbing to an extent will protect cars from each other. It also is useful as it can be an improved pedestrian crossing to create a pedestrian refuge. So by reworking this intersection to have more curbs and medians, even in the conventional non-signalized intersection that would be warranted right now, we can make some improvements. But overall, we believe the roundabout is the best design direction at this time. Is what we recommend. And that's all I had for now. Any questions?
Yeah, who'd like to begin with questions?
I have one.
Yeah, go for it.
How do you see, if we went with the alternative that was presented, how do you see that affecting delays on per vehicle?
So if it's if we do the roundabout.
Talking about stoplight?
No, I'm talking about the conventional intersection alternative.
What you talked about last.
That the last thing you just talked about.
Conventional intersection alternative will not significantly affect the level of service, unfortunately. Some of those improvements will drive down the vehicle speed and make it less likely to have collisions to an extent, but ultimately it won't change that level of service. The wait times will be the same as they are now.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, go for it.
It looks like on your drawing or your roundabout picture that the crosswalk lines up with the paths that are currently there. Is that right?
Well, so yes, along what's the road that's just south of this intersection? Is it
Grand Avenue is there on the south side, and currently there's not a sidewalk on the east side of that intersection. It just comes down Mesa Lane on the west side.
Right.
And you can kind of see that light gray. That's the trail. It comes down Mesa and it hangs a left and goes along the south side of 291. And you can sort of see the crosswalk there back to the west, about maybe 150 feet. And so they're pulling it closer to the intersection. I think where probably the speeds are slowest, and that's probably the recommended location, I'm guessing, Chris?
Yes. Yes, so we're tying into the sidewalk on the south side of 291. There will be continuity on the right side of the picture. We're now showing dead end. That won't be that way. We'll have it tie back into the sidewalk adjacent to 291. But yes, we do recommend moving that crossing to Sands Lake from its current location and closer to the roundabout where we have that pedestrian refuge, and the speed should be slower.
So that, I'm not real good at north, south, east, west on here. The sidewalk on that side, there is a path that goes up the hill, because
Yeah.
I've been on it a lot on my bike, and that is already there, right?
Yeah.
On that side, and it'll just tie in, but you'll have a crosswalk to go across that intersection now, where there isn't now. There's nothing.
Correct. It'll not just cross the intersection, but there'll be a sidewalk on south side, the
On the-
bottom side of 291 from this intersection the whole way up to M Street. So essentially the whole length of the project will have a sidewalk.
And is that in this same price? No.
Well, the sidewalk's been planned all along, correct?
Okay.
Yeah, there's no proposed change in that scope at all.
Okay.
I don't have any
I think-
questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dominique had
No, you go ahead.
I'm still formulating my questions. I was going to say that the crosswalk at the south there, I think there may be a crosswalk there, or it's faded, but it's just it's a tough place for cars to see the pedestrian as it's situated right now, and it's just weird. It's hard for them to stop, it seems like, because they're racing down the bottom of that hill usually to get to work or to get home from work. So it's really unsafe as it is right now. I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
I was going to ask the question, David, maybe this is a question for Russ, or Chris, but once cars slow down at the roundabout, do they tend to then speed back up again? Is there any data around that?
Well, I think to Chris's point, the fact that if you're coming into town, if a roundabout were constructed, the road is going to appear or feel narrower with the curb and gutter. So in theory, that should accommodate or promote slower speeds. And I think also just with the curb and gutter, we've talked about landscaping those islands. I'm just going to throw out maybe something similar to Poncha Boulevard, where there's that area between the sidewalk and the curb where trees could be planted and things like that. And trees also help to promote slower speeds. So I think that's something we'd certainly look at encouraging down the road. So.
I know I live on West Second Street, which is one of the offshoots from the highway, nearby here, and West Third, and cars just go so fast down those streets because they're so wide and there's no sidewalks on West Third. So it would be really nice to see us use something like this to slow traffic down.
And I think even those intersections, that third and second, perhaps, Chris, if you want to scroll up to the overall, I guess it's probably too small of a scale to see it, but with the curb and kind of defining those intersections, there won't really be a huge merge to where you can hit them at 25 miles an hour. It will slow down the turning movements at second and third, I'm sure of that. So maybe the next different page has those, but I don't know if it helps. Do you have that level of detail on that exhibit?
It'd be page 4.
It's actually, yeah, up.
Up?
Yeah, is right at the beginning. Down, sorry.
Getting warm.
Right here. Okay. This one?
Yeah, if you were to scroll into like maybe second or third. And actually, the James Place project already had that intersection generally redesigned to have a little bit tighter radius. And this project's basically taking their design and plopping it down and replicating or what they had planned to do there. It's a little hard to tell, but it will improve those intersections.
Because I'd imagine with West Third needing curb and gutter and sidewalks, I'm guessing the plan is for that to happen after this project. Is that correct?
It's currently not in the long-range budget, but it makes sense from a planning perspective for sure for Third Street to have those
Okay,
streetscape components.
thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, you're on.
I'm excited about the roundabout. You know, I just came back from the city and so was in a lot of roundabouts. And my observations was the speed limit slowed before you got to the roundabout. That got your attention. It said roundabout, ahead. And that people were going very slow in the roundabout, and I really liked that. And because I'm not really used to them, of course, I did a whole extra loop one time before I got out of it, and I felt perfectly comfortable and safe. Part of what I like about it is it's a better long-term solution, and it stands to save us a lot of money on signalization. I also like what it said in the small print, although I struggled to believe it, that it could deter some large trucks. And if that did, that would be a real bonus, because we know we can't do anything about semis on a state highway. But if we can discourage them even a little bit, and it's a proactive design that takes us further into the future, I'm all about it.
It will certainly slow down large trucks, I'm sure of that.
At least it would slow them down.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anyone saw the email that came in from Eric Miller tonight. There is a group that's working as a devolution, is that what? Which, I don't know if you want to just, who knows if it'll happen or not, but there's a group looking into it where we would take it over from the state highway. We could put in place theoretically those bans, and they would front us the money for, 20 years of maintenance or something?
Yeah, as far as the agreements, I don't know if that 20-year is necessarily a fixed policy by CDOT, but there is a process. A lot of times that happens in big cities where, highways, as the town grows, they become essentially brought in under the city's control. I imagine that's definitely a bigger conversation with the county to see if they support it as well. I don't know what their stance would be on that, even though I know from the being able to control regulations and policies perspective, it might benefit the city some, but it's probably a bigger picture to discuss on that one.
Nothing to be figured out tonight.
And even if it happened.
Yeah, I was just kind of looking at the crosswalks themselves. Do we know, what's the distance between, as the cars come in and they're coming back out of that roundabout, how close to the roundabout is the crosswalks, actual distance? Because I've seen, the last one that I was at I've been through Carbondale a lot, and there's one pretty, exactly like this. And I see there's a lot of stuff going on in a cul-de-sac, and I think they've put their crosswalks too close to the actual roundabout, because I've seen people coming through the roundabout trying to figure out which lane they're supposed to be in, and then all of a sudden the light comes on for their crosswalk and they stop, and then cars get backed up, or they just don't stop at all. People try to walk, and I've seen in Carbondale they move pretty fast through those things. So I'd like to see them moved back just a little bit further so people can negotiate the roundabout and then come out and then be able to negotiate a crosswalk. I just don't want to see the crosswalk too close to the actual roundabout itself.
Yeah,
That's kind of my
I know
concern.
exactly what you're referring to there. Chris, is there like a range that can be within based off of like street design, or is there some flexibility with that?
We'll likely use the CDOT design criteria. They developed a pretty robust criteria for roundabouts. My recollection is that the minimum distance is 20 feet, but I recall that was a minimum distance, so you could have it further away if desired.
I'd like to see it as further away as possible. I'm pretty sure the one in Carbondale is just too close to.
And I can see
comfort.
maybe even that one over to Sands Lake could be further versus, who knows, maybe with the Mesa Lane, where there's a curve there. Sometimes you look at the site triangles and that might help dictate where it needs to go as well.
And then also with the, discouraging the heavy truck traffic as well. What are these, I mean, how, because we know we have a lot of trucks that roll through there from Butala going to Hard Rock. I mean, they just lap that highway nonstop. Where are they capable of accepting, an end dump or a belly dump, full-size semi truck trailer to maneuver around these things?
There's different design criteria that can go from those trucks being able to navigate it fully in the asphalt. Likely what we'll do is in the picture, you might recall there was kind of a pink colored inner circle, and that will be what we would call a raised apron. So it'll have
Be able to drive over, kind of
okay,
buffer.
here we go.
Right there.
I see what you're saying.
Scroll over.
Yes, so the pink next to the green on the inside. So that will be a raised, 3 or 4 inch raised concrete. It'll look like a sidewalk, but it's called an apron. And the intent is that a truck would be able to mount that to be able to pull a long trailer through there. But it's not comfortable, but they can make it. So they have to drag their trailer up onto that apron, but that's what's designed to do.
I know we were talking about, the evolution process. I totally understand the reasoning behind it and everything that's going on downtown right now, with all the big trucks that are rolling through there. But it just seems like we need to, also take into account of what's it going to do to those big truck routes and where they have to go to be able to get to their destinations as well, if we are deciding to go this route in the future to take over that part of the highway and turn it into a city street. Because it's a pretty main fairway for those bigger trucks to get to their destination, a little shorter than some of the alternative routes. And looking at some of those alternative routes, there's a lot of blind corners, a lot of hills that create a lot more safety issues, and then also adding time and miles to trucks, and it also it's going to trickle down effect, adding higher costs for deliveries and that kind of stuff. If trucks have to drive out of town up to 291 or back to 285, back into town to 50 through Poncha and then back around, and some of the other the county roads that they're making them take now are just kind of seem like there's a lot of blind corners, a lot of busy Franz Lakes in there as well. So I just think we need to definitely, when that comes up, we need to really think about where that's going to take the whole process. So.
And I would add just one thing to that. I mean, regardless of the decision we make, there's going to be people who support it and people who don't. And I understand, what some of the truckers would say, and I have some empathy there, but I've heard so much more the opposite of that. People really want to reduce the trucks coming through downtown. And so it's going to be one of those things, regardless of the decision we make, not everybody's going to be happy. I just had a couple of things. First of which, I really like this idea. I mean, I'm noticing it more and more, not necessarily so much here, but I have seen it at Mesa Lane and 291. I see it all the time on 50. People really aggressively making left turns into oncoming traffic. I mean, I had it happen to me today with I won't mention the word I used when he pulled in front of me, but it's dangerous. So anything that can reduce that risk, I think is really, really critical. But the question I have, and it's probably for Amy, and it would be the $350,000 question, related to the budget?
Sure, and certainly, I guess it kind of comes down to on average, the last few years have kind of been averaging about 1.6, 1.8 million in our revenues coming in through sales tax to fund street rehabilitation projects. And then there's other line items within the streets fund that have stayed consistent. So if, let's say, we were to add that cost to the project, and if, let's say, the cost estimate that we had the grant money for was accurate, I think probably Amy's recommendation was that we just pull it out of the street reserves, and so it might limit $350,000 worth of other improvements elsewhere.
I just wanted to point out on top of that, this isn't the general fund. The general fund is what's killing us, is coming out of the street.
Thanks for that distinction.
Okay, thanks,
Yeah.
yeah.
A couple more questions. David, I heard this when I was on the Transportation Advisory Board for the county, that the route through Salida on 291 is actually not supposed to be used by truckers, that they're supposed to use to go around to Highway 50. And I don't know if that's live. I think what I heard was that it's just not enforced.
I think it was probably 5 or 6 years ago. I know City Council specifically asked that question of CDOT staff, and they provide a statement indicating trucks are allowed to use state
Okay.
highways across Colorado.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then I'm wondering, I'm sure the easements for potential landscaping vary throughout that corridor, the corridor that we're looking at tonight. But I would just, if we do go forward, encourage us to get into the weeds there. It is really koshified out there in some places, and it would be nice to see some native plants.
So get into the weeds of details on the
Yeah.
project.
Yeah, really getting into the weeds there, just.
Yeah, and it's very, the CDOT right-of-way is really large here, that those magenta or pink colored lines actually indicate where the CDOT right-of-way goes up to. And so it's a pretty simple process, but you do have to get a special use permit, which many other communities have done for improvements within the right-of-way, such as our entryway signs that we have here. So, but yeah, I agree, we will be looking at that. It's just, it wasn't an approved item under the grant, but certainly down the road. I don't know, even Diesel could probably speak to like Poncha Boulevard. Yeah, I think there was an estimate on what it might cost a contractor to put in those sorts of improvements, but I think their staff saved the city quite a bit of money by doing it in-house, and I'm not trying to volunteer staff, but we certainly have capable people within the city staff that can help do a lot of that work.
I
So,
guess my point is that there's a lot of grants out there for native planting as well, if we go forward, if we could be looking at that as well.
okay.
And that includes also that island we have dominion over somehow? The
green one?
The green circle?
Yeah,
Called Critellieville.
Right, yeah, I mean, I guess, how does that work? How do we have?
same thing, especially use permit.
Oh, we would just ask, or else they would be in charge of the use of that island, or?
Correct. I think if CDOT was in charge, they'd probably put concrete in, quite frankly. I mean, it's low maintenance, right? But a lot of communities, I know Fruita has some pretty cool art displays. I think that's Highway 6 maybe that crosses their interchange, where they have like, sculptures and things like that. There's visibility criteria, so it doesn't block through visibility, but yes, there's opportunities to do artwork or things like that in that space. Probably try to keep landscaping out of it and do more like sculpture type things. That's a lot easier to maintain and safer, to not have to send staff in there to weed whack or things like that, but yeah.
That's all I was gonna say. We probably would not put landscaping in an island.
Yeah.
Just to have staff trying to access that would be really difficult. Statues, memorial statues,
They have to be polished,
the
though.
council members.
They still have to be maintained,
But it's,
be polished and different things like that.
we've got a really nice stage that could go in there.
What about Welcome to Salida sign, a new one?
What about do?
No lemonade stands.
Right.
So my kid's gonna be busking with this guy.
Anybody have anything else tonight?
It sounds like the direction is kind of move forward with the design as preliminary proposed, and sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
I think just to recap all this, the grant funding requires that this work be completed by the end of 2026. So just knowing CDOT clearances and this and that, it'll probably take most of 2025 to get all the clearances in place. So it'd probably be a 2026 project, which certainly we'll need to be dialoguing with CDOT on, since they have another big project potentially that year, but I think that would probably get delayed, theirs would, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a tour now?
You do. I want to set the stage a little bit for you before we get going, though. Set the stage.
Well, you should probably try to manage our expectations.
I'm totally going to manage your expectations. You are going to see on this tour doors that don't go anywhere. Very exciting, right? Places we can't get
I'm on
into.
a road to
Cryptic, or is that?
I know, right?
It's like the
Okay.
Remington.
So, in all seriousness, I don't know how many of you, when you come to the council meetings, see any other part of this facility. And so just a little bit of history of this. It used to be a hospital, as you all are aware. So there are 4 very unsecured entrances that come into this fine building that the city and county own together. So there are county offices here, there are city offices here, there are state offices here, and nonprofits rent from both the city and county. So it's a great community space. It is wonderful that we have been able to use it as a location for a number of city services. It also makes it extremely challenging for staff to do some work, to utilize the space that we have, and to kind of, in general, provide some of the services that we would like to in the way that we would. So there's been a lot of discussion about potential remodels to the Tauber building. There are people moving around here, and I think it's really important for you all to see what staff is working with and some of the difficulties and frustrations that staff has being in an unsecured government building. And trying to both respond to citizens who come in and need services from us, and also get work done while responding to citizens who are not here for city services, but may be here for entirely unnecessary or inappropriate reasons. And it's extremely important, I think, for everyone to see how we work on a day-to-day basis. So it's a good opportunity for new council members, as well as those seasoned who may have forgotten where your mailbox is. So we're going to go on a little walk.
We have mailboxes?
Right? I know, you do. Can we lock this door so I can go to this guy? Okay. I never check my mail.
All wrapped into one. It was real and fun, but not real fun.
I just went through like a maze.
I'm just curious if anybody has any questions
Nice.
now that you've seen it. You don't have to. I was just checking. Just wanted to give you an opportunity.
Remind about the agreement,
pretty good to me.
and how long does that carry?
So workforce and vocational rehab, theirs expired June 30th of this year. And they're moving to a space on Highway 50. The DMV, their lease expires June 30th of 2026.
Okay.
And they have the option to extend it 10 years and we don't have a say in that.
What about the agreement with the county?
We own the building with the county. So we have a tenants in common agreement that was written in 2008 when the city and county purchased the building together. And it lays out common areas, areas that are the city's responsibility, areas that are the county's responsibility. We have a building management committee that meets monthly. Amy and I are the city's representatives, and then Don Reimer and Dan Short are the county representatives. Then we have tenants that come to that as well, like public health, DHS. We have Diesel usually comes, and Nate, our facilities manager. We also have a buildings and grounds employee that this county hires and pays, but we pay half their salary. So the city pays half that salary and half of the costs for any maintenance or capital improvements that are made in the common areas. But like the work that we did in this room, the city paid 100% for because the county doesn't have access to it.
Do you know what we paid for it back in '08?
Probably just a couple million.
I mean, it's,
Yeah.
because we always get, but people are always saying, oh, in terms of like by deferring and holding off, how much more expensive things get. It's just
Yep.
a good reality check.
Yep, for sure.
What is have you guys talked to the employees of the DMV? Do they seem like they want to stay or do they want to try and move on?
Diesel and I met with their regional manager and their facilities manager 2 Fridays ago, and they were fine with moving, but
Finding a
they were
place.
also fine with staying where they were.
Yeah.
They don't
They
care.
really didn't care. We tried to impart just how disruptive where they are is to our employees, and while they empathized with it, they really didn't
They don't care.
have a solution for it
Used to
other
be
than
a
us.
Shallow
What was
empathy.
the building that the brewery, Moonlight Brewery
Oh, sorry.
is in now?
That used to be the
That used to be
DMV.
the DMV, that's where I
Yeah.
first.
There's a state building on Highway 50 that vocational rehab and workforce are moving into that we gently suggested they might want to contact, and they gently told us that if we wanted them to go there, that we could contact them. So it was really, yeah,
Help in any way to facilitate a move, right?
yeah. So Diesel did offer to help facilitate that, but
And I think I asked this and I think you answered it, but the cost that they pay for the current lease, it goes in 2026, they have the option to go 10 more years.
yes.
Do we have the option to renegotiate any price on that?
Nope.
And
It's
there's no
all,
built-in accelerator.
there's a built-in accelerator, yeah. Yep, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have any option to do anything
There's
with
no
that
way to
lease.
like breach a contract or if they do something that we don't like?
If we
or-
physically remove their things, but I don't think we want to do that. I mean, it's not that they're, but it was nice of them to speak with us about it and to be willing to move, but that was kind of as far as it went.
As long as we pay for the expense.
Yeah, they had offered to pay to re-cable things, because all of their wires and security will need to be transferred to the new space, and they offered to pay for that.
And is that the only, so you have a great plan for them moving forward, if that's what we choose to do. Is there another option for them in this building, or is that the best one? Not that I'm a builder or anything else.
It seems like the best one. The only other option could potentially be coming in the Riverside entrance, the backside, And where we came out of that door, when you saw Bill's office was the last office, but we didn't show them this. So that door could be left open. We could build a wall between, like, right where Bill's office ended and where the bike was there, and cut a hole in that wall, but we haven't shown them that.
And is that one accessible, that entrance?
Mhm, yep, that's an ADA accessible spot back there. We'd have to remove all of the cabinetry that's on that wall. So 6 of 1 at this point.
It would cut Bill's space shorter.
Yeah, Bill would probably have to take the office we were gonna give to Dan.
Oh, man.
Dan, you need another office? You need another office, Dan?
So historically, the mayor has had an office in the Tauber building.
Oh,
So, I don't know when it was, I don't,
It started with Jim Dixon.
Dixon was in it.
Dixon was, and then Levici, and then PT.
Yeah.
And then I got bounced.
and Dan got bounced. So, yeah, historically, there's been an office here for the mayor.
so there's 2 options for them.
There's only one that they've really looked at.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I like that option though, because that is where people are coming in looking for it. And I'd love it if they just found it.
That's how we're feeling. It's just the most public facing.
Yes.
That even if we had DMV there with their own entrance, like when Bill in the backside, I don't think it would actually change anything.
They won't find it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see. We're waiting to see how much the estimates come back from Sarah Whittingham, and so we'll go from there.
Put some neon signs, some marquees up, maybe they'll find it then. I was just saying.
I'm sensing
A
that we
bar
have a
scene.
group here tonight that doesn't want to leave.
I know.
Oh, I'm
You
ready.
guys done?
Ready.
You're done with us? Thank you. We're gonna start taking you all on more tours so that you know what kind of facilities we have.
Hey.
And I didn't get my mail.
You've always.